Finance Minister Trevor Manuel is set to testify at the state capture inquiry today.
In the last few days, details were revealed about dealings between Eskom and Gupta Associates. Our colleague, ENC now anchor Xoli Mgambo, is in Parktown this morning. Xoli, good morning. Well, I'm sure as the cliche goes, everybody's going to be waiting to hear what Mr. Manuel is going to be telling the inquiry.
Indeed, Dan, a very good morning to you and Yuveka. The former Finance Minister, Trevor Manuel, is expected to appear here at the state capture inquiry today. And of course, it's going to be all about whether or not the former President, Jacob Zuma, did indeed outsource his executive powers because, as the story goes, Fikile Mbalula would have first known that he was going to become sports minister from one of the Gupta brothers. And so this is a story that Trevor Manuel has continued to back up. And today we're going to hear from him directly as to why he's so convinced that Fikile Mbalula first heard from the Guptas that he was going to become minister. But I'm not alone, Dan. I am with political analyst Karima Brown, who's going to just give us a bit more detail about why this testimony of Trevor Manuel is important. Karima, talk to us. What is it that Trevor Manuel is going to give this commission that is so important about the appointment of Fikile Mbalula to become the sports minister? What is the essential element or the important element about why Fikile Mbalula was first informed by someone who's outside of government?
The whole point, Xoli, about the State Capture Commission is the fact that the Public Protector had found enough evidence that former President Jacob Zuma had outsourced his responsibility for governance, for private gain to a family, the Guptas. And what we have here is an NEC member at the time saying that another NEC member got up in the highest decision-making structure of the African National Congress, told them tearfully that he was very, very upset that he had to learn from the Guptas that he is now going to be the sports minister. So Trevor Manuel's testimony places former President Jacob Zuma front and center at the State Capture Commission, and it goes to the heart of why we're actually having this inquiry, because this inquiry is about whether or not Jacob Zuma had outsourced his responsibility. So if cabinet ministers were appointed by friends of the president, then it means that nobody served at the pleasure of President Zuma. They served at the pleasure of Saxonwold. That is why today is so significant.
Karima, the retort from Fikile Mbalula has always been, and I'm just going to ask you to move out of the sun so that you don't have two shades in your face, but the retort has always been that there's no truth to this. How is Trevor Manuel going to back this up? Who is he hoping is going to back up his story? Because it's essentially going to be his word versus that of Fikile Mbalula's.
It's not going to be his word against that of Fikile Mbalula. It's going to be the NEC in the meeting in which Mbalula said this. So there are almost 88 members of the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress. Some of them are there, some of them are not there. And of course, if you look at someone like Barbara Hogan, for example, who explained the kind of pressure that she came under from the ANC itself to appoint Siyabonga Gama despite the allegations, then I think Trevor Manuel is not going to be alone. There are going to be other NEC members in that meeting that will in fact back him up. And of course, Mr. Mbalula is going to have to find witnesses that said he never said it. And I think it's going to be very difficult for him to do that, because it wasn't a conversation with the two of them. It was a conversation in the highest structure, decision-making body of the organization. So the pressure is going to actually be on the African National Congress to either exonerate what Trevor Manuel has said or to back Fikile Mbalula. Trevor Manuel is not the kind of man to make idle threats. He normally carries through on them. There was an ugly spat between him and Fikile Mbalula on the nature of capital in South Africa, and this issue came up. So I don't think that it's going to be a he said, she said matter. People are going to be subpoenaed to come here and to make clear what the truth was and what was actually said in that meeting. And let me say to you, it was common cause among us as political journalists at the time that Fikile Mbalula was extremely unhappy that the Guptas were the ones that informed him. And remember, he was opposed to President Jacob Zuma running again in 2012 for the ANC leadership. He actually backed Kgalema Motlanthe, and during that time he actually said one of the reasons why he's not backing Jacob Zuma is because of the influence that this family is exerting over Zuma. So it's going to be extremely hard for him to get out of this.
The other person that is coming through, Karima, unfortunately we have run out of time, is Siphiwe Nyanda. We know his background in terms of the struggle credentials, but just very quickly for us, the element that he's going to be bringing in here, what evidence is he likely to bring here?
Well, he has been mentioned by Barbara Hogan when she testified. Now, remember, when people are mentioned, they are supposed to be informed. They are then given a notice by the Commission that they are implicated in the evidence that comes out. Siphiwe Nyanda's name came out in the Siyabonga Gama matter. And of course, Barbara Hogan, she had to delay her testimony because initially her testimony only related to the fact that the President exerted pressure on her. But then later on, she implicated a whole range of organizations and individuals. And so Siphiwe Nyanda is going to have to come and speak about the Gama matter. Now, what makes this very hard for the African National Congress is that the ANC's deployment committee had actually decided on Siyabonga Gama as the candidate. That is why, for example, the Congress of the South African Communist Party backed him. But Barbara Hogan said in her testimony that she had briefed at the time Zwelinzima Vavi, who was head of COSATU, about the allegations against Mr. Gama, and that is why COSATU, for example, didn't push that Gama remains, as the candidate. And she, of course, also had Mr. Maseko, who is running Telkom, as the alternative candidate. And the thing that she took issue with the most was the fact that she was, of course, called an untransformed racist. And this is someone who spent 10 years in prison, whose entire life has been dedicated to the African National Congress. So Mr. Nyanda is going to have to explain his relationship with Mr. Gama, and there's a lot of speculation that he benefited from the locomotive deals. Now, as you know, a lot of those deals have actually been put on halt because they are being reassessed. Transnet board chairperson Dr. Popo Molefe is busy with that process. We already know that China South Rail is paying back some of the monies, so it's going to be very interesting to see what is going to come out here today. But again, like I said, the Gama matter was discussed in the ANC's deployment committee, and that is why some people stuck to their guns on that issue. The problem was for Mr. Gama was that he was implicated in very serious allegations, and as you know, he was recently fired from Transnet.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Karima Brown. Thank you very much for putting us in the picture there. Well, Dan, so that's the situation. Those are the two individuals that are going to be making an appearance here at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry today.
Thank you very much.